Welcome back, everybody. Are you ready to complete your turtleneck Dickey? All right. Okay, let's get started. Now, I want to remind you, we have one piece that is on a stitch holder. You should have your stitches, your live stitches are on your stitch holder, and you should have bound off 14 stitches at the shoulders. Once you did it in knit, and the next time you did it in purl. So that is where you're at, and this should be 8 inches. And there will be a link to the list of, to the other, I'll leave the link for the first video so you can go back and follow how to do this. And it'll be in my knit tutorials, easy knit tutorials list. Now here is our second piece, and remember that you can tell where you're at because your yarn should be coming from the right side. And here is my yarn. I'm on a purl row. The purl bumps are facing me. And on this piece, we really want to end with the purl row. Okay, we knit those last 3 stitches just as we should. So we ended with a purl row. Now you're going to knit 17 stitches, and then we're going to slip the last 39 stitches onto another stitch holder. Okay, all right, so let's knit 17. Now you're not casting these off, you're just knitting them. 2, 3, 4, 5. $16, $17. Okay, now we're going to slip the rest of these onto the stitch holder, and there should be 39 of them. So I'll count those as I go. I'm going to kind of pull that way. If you're using the straight needles, you can just put a stitch holder on the end of your needles so they don't slip off. $36, $37, $38, $39. Okay. Now we're going to work over the 17 stitches, okay, that we knit at the start of the row, and work on those 17 stitches, okay? And we turned it so the purl side is toward us because now we're working, see, there's our yarn. We're going to start right here at the edge of this, and we're going to work on these 17 stitches. Now we're going to do our first decrease here with our very first stitch. So put your needle behind that yarn so that yarn is in the front because we're purling. You're going to put your needle into the first 2 stitches. I'm going to pull that yarn tight a little bit. I'm going to purl those first 2 stitches together. Okay, that's the start of your row. We've now decreased 1 stitch, and that is our neck edge. Now we're going to purl over to the last 3 stitches. So we're going to purl over to here. And we're going to continue our stitch pattern of having those last 3 stitches be knits also. Okay, so we're going to purl over to those last 3 like we were doing. If you were using your stitch holder, you can still keep your stitch holder. I removed mine. You don't have to remove yours. I didn't need it to remind me anymore. But if you need it, you continue to use it. So I'm over here. Here's my last 3 stitches. Yarn goes in the back, and then I knit them. Now we're going to turn it again. Now we're on the front side. Yarn is over here on the right, so you know where you're starting. You're going to start right here. Now you're going to knit across, and then we're going to repeat those last 2 rows again, twice. Okay, so you're going to knit this one, then you're going to purl 2 together, purl across, knit the last 3, then you're going to knit, then you're going to purl 2 together, purl across, knit the last 3, and knit. So that's the 6 rows. It's a total of 3 times of these 2 rows 3 times. You now have 14 stitches left here on this side, and you can see where you've been shaping right along the neck. Okay, now you're going to work this evenly. Now when a pattern tells you to work evenly, it means whatever you're doing. And we are, in our pattern, we are working in stockinette stitch, which means we are knitting the front side and we're purling the back side to come back. Okay, that's stockinette. And we also have 3 stitches for our border, which is knit on both sides. And we're going to continue doing that. And you want to do that until your piece measures 2 inches from where we started our first purl decrease right here. So 2 inches. Now, how do I know? Well, see how it's kind of splayed out? Bring it over. And that's the bottom of the stitch right there. So bring that over, and that will show you that's where my first decrease stitch was, right here. Now I want this from here, I want it to measure 2 inches. So when my piece here, working it evenly, gets it to 2 inches, then we'll come back. Okay, now working evenly, again, means you are going to knit across, then you're going to turn, and you're going to purl across to the last 3 stitches, and you're going to knit those, and you're going to work those 2 rows, working your piece evenly until it's 2 inches. Now in reality, getting to your 2 inches really only comes out to be a couple of rows, and you want to end with the purl row. So we're now on the purl side right here. Yarn's coming from the right, purl bumps are forward. And now you're going to bind these off. And remember how we do this. We bind off in the way in which the stitches come to us. Our first stitch in this case is a purl stitch. So my yarn is in the front. I'm going to purl that stitch. Now I'm going to purl the next one, give that a little tug, purl that. Now I'm going to reach behind, grabbing that stitch there, and pass it over that one. And then I'm going to purl, give it a little tug, and I'll purl the next one. Reach behind, bring that over the top. And I'm going to do this all the way over to the other end, except when I get to the other end, I need to do those knitwise. So now my last 3 here are knits, and remember we bind off in which they come to us, unless your instructions say otherwise. Now we're going to put that yarn in the back. And now we're going to knit that one. I'm going to come in the front and pass it over. Okay, now I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving myself a decent tail. Pull that through. Now I want you to flip your piece over, and I want you to mark the front of this piece. If you want to use a different colored yarn, you can do that. So this is the front of your piece. This is also the front of our turtleneck, Dickey. So we want this to be marked as front so that we remember that, okay? Because I'm going to tell you something in just a minute. I'm going to say work with the front piece or work with the back piece. I want you to be able to tell which one is the front one. Now, if you pick up your your stitch holder, you see that we have stitches on here that go from the edge over to here in the middle. This is the center. And what you're going to do, we're going to leave the center stitches on here, but we're going to knit the edge over here because see, we did this side for a shoulder. Now we need to do this side for a shoulder. So you're going to flip your piece over using your needle. You're going to slip 17 stitches from here and put them onto this needle. Okay, so that's 17. I'm going to close that and make sure that I have 22 on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 20, 21, 22. Okay, so those are going to stay on there. Now we're going to use these stitches. And we're going to do our decreases the same way that we did on the other side. And in order to do that, we're now going to flip this piece over. We have the stitches on here. Now you're going to flip it over. And now you're going to be on the inside of this again. Okay? Now we want to reattach our yarn. So how we're going to do that, we're going to come in, we're going to act like we're going to knit, which we are. We're going to put that yarn on there, and then we're just going to knit with it. Make sure you have a pretty good tail there. Kind of pull it back out a little. and you're going to knit across. Now we're going to turn our work, and we're going to work a decrease just like we did on the other side. However, this one will be a little bit different because we're not going to start with our decrease. We're going to end with it over here at the next edge. Okay? So now you're going to knit the first 3. Bring your yarn in front, purl over to the edge, and you're going to purl over to the last 2 stitches. Now you're going to purl those 2 stitches together. Turn your work. Now you're going to knit back across, and you're going to repeat that 2 more times. And that'll be our 6 rows and our 3 decreases. So knit across, and then you're going to do what we did just a minute ago and purl 2 together, knit across, knit 3, purl across, and purl 2 together. Then you're going to work evenly until this is 2 inches, just like we did on the other side. And because you'll have 14 stitches remaining by that point, just like on the other side. Now you should have worked it even. You've got your 2 inches like you had on the other side, and now we're going to bind off. Again, you ended on a purl side. Our yarn's coming here, our purl bumps are here. These first 3 stitches though are knit. So now when we bind off, we're going to bind off the first part in knit and then switch over to purl. So there's that. And that. Now my yarn is going to come in the front. Reach around to the back and bind off. So bind off all the way and go ahead and you can cut your yarn, but here's what I suggest. When you cut your yarn on the other end, leave yourself a little more yarn so that you're going to be sewing something together with that piece. Okay guys, you have your first piece with your shoulders. You're all set. Your neck is here, shoulders here. Now we want to sew together the left shoulder. And this is why I told you to mark the front. This is the front. So if this were on me, this side would be the left. So I'm going to sew this together with this one. So we need to turn it over, and we're going to sew these 2 sides together. So you're going to put, I'm actually going to turn it to where my wrong side's facing me, okay? And the right side of this one's facing. And lay it on top. Start over here on this side. and then you can sew it together. You have 14 stitches, remember, okay? And you're going to sew it together. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and tuck all my ends in so that I have a cleaner slate to work with. So I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, I've got all my little ends sewn in. I have enough yarn left on this one side where I cut it that I think will be enough to sew this together. That out of the way. This is my neck on the inside. I want to keep that there. Now you can easily see your stitches on the top here. You can see your V's. And you can see your V's there. So it's very easy to put this together. And honestly, all I do, and the way that makes sense to me is to go through both stitches. And what that does is, because I have the wrong sides together, and I go through both. The camera cut out on me. I go through both legs of both sides, and then I just go back again and back again. So I'll come across, go through those two, I'll come across, go through those two and those two, and that puts all these stitches here on the top. And what that does is that means that all of that is now on the inside of my piece because I have the wrong sides together. Okay, you guys? So that's what I would do. Go ahead and get your piece sewn together, and I'll see you here in a minute. Now I want to assure you that everything is okay. This is the front because I've marked it. Okay. This is the shoulder. We just seamed it together. You see it leaves this seam here. And if you wanted alternately, you wanted to have this on the outside, you could do that. It's either way you want to do it. So this is seamed together. So this is the back because I don't see my stitch marker. All right, so here's the front. And now let's lay everything out and see where we're at. Okay, see, there's my shoulder. And you're going to say to yourself, okay, well, something feels off here because I have this flap, and that's okay. We're going to pick that up here after a while, okay? We're going to use that flap. Don't worry. You're doing just fine. So I want to assure you that's the way it's supposed to look. This is shorter here. You have this flap. That's part of your shoulder. And here we are. We have our stitches on our stitch holders. Everything is well with the world, you guys. Now we go ahead with the rest. All right, you guys. Now we're going to get this back on the needles. So we are going to slide the stitches this is the holder, this is the back holder, this is our back piece. The stitches that are remaining on the stitch holder for the back piece, you're going to slide those onto the needle. Now we want to work with the right side facing us. So this is the back, right side. It's going to be facing us. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to knit across these stitches, and then we're going to pick up stitches right here along the neck. Now these stitches right here are that stair step that we did as we bound off the stitches, and those are going to become now a part of the neck. Okay, it goes right here. As you can see, it goes right here from where our shoulder seam is, and we're going to pick those up right along that edge, and there should be 13 of them. 13. Now if you wanted to, you could put stitch markers in there and count them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, that's you're gonna have to, and what I do though is visually do it just like that. So I know this is a stitch here. I might pick this up right here. This is that bar in between the two stitches. I'll probably pick that up. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll pick this right here. That's that decrease that we did, that was the purl. So that's 5. Then we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then right in here I'll pick one up right in here. So you really want some structure. Okay, now instructions don't always tell you these things, so that's why I want to be sure and make you understand that when you're putting things together and you're picking up stitches, they don't always, you can't always just visually like look right at it and say, okay, there they are, because if I look right here, that there they aren't are. I don't see all of them. But I also won't know that I want it to be structurally sound. So I want to pick up in the places that are going to give me structure, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we are going to start over here, and also here's what you're going to do. You're going to go around, you're going to pick these up, and then we're going to come across these also. So we're going to work around this. We're going to turn this into a circle and work around it. Okay, here we go. So you're going to reattach your yarn. Now we're going to work across these stitches. And there are 28 of these stitches right here. Now I'm going to pick up and knit. I'm going to tighten that. That's why I did not cinch that piece in right there. I wanted to be able to tighten that up here. So I'm actually going to pick one up right here in this area, right in the center of that knot. Okay, and make sure I'm right in it. So there's one, and I pick up the next one. Two. And if I get lost, I count backwards. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's not enough. So 2, so we're going to come back right here. 3. That would be the next one. And I'm going to come out here to the outside. Four. Pull it, tighten it up. That's 5. So right now I've got 5. We need 13. Six. 7. 8. 9. 10. And I keep cinching that. Just keep cinching it closer. 11. 12. 13. And that's 13. Okay. Now I know that that one is going to tighten up, and that, so that that hole right there is going to be cinched up. But I go back, now that I've got them picked up, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, now we're going to knit the next set, and the next set sits on this needle. Now this happens every time I make this Dickey, that I have put the stitches on this needle, on this stitch holder, and for some reason I always get them on going this direction where it's harder to pick them up. So I'm actually going to bring the other end of my needle around, okay? And I'm going to pick them up with the other end of the needle. Now we're all set. Now I'm going to knit across these stitches. Okay, now we need to pick up the 13 stitches going up this side right here. Just like we did on the other side. So I'm actually going to start over here and put them on the needles. There's 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 11, I'll go down here, 12, and here for 13. And now we just knit those. Sometimes they're not facing in the correct direction, and I will turn them around. And that's what you guys see me doing when I do that. And sometimes those stitches that you pick up feel a little bit tight. All you have to do is go down to the end of the tips, so you can slide your needle in up underneath it. See, like that one? I go up under here to the tip. I can slide my needle up under there pretty easy. Okay, now, again, you should have 76 stitches all the way around here. Now, you're not going to join it. We're not going to join it in a circle. What we're going to do, we're going to stitch it right down the side when we get done, right here. You're going to come down across the edge of your ribbing, and you're going to come down here. Okay, so now you have 76 stitches. Now you're going to do your ribbing. All right, and so that's going to be a knit 2, purl 2 rib. So we're going to go ahead and turn our work. Everything's on here. Now if you're like me and you're just using this one skein of yarn and you're wondering, I wonder if I'm going to have enough yarn here. Here's what you do. On the other end of your yarn from the outside, you need to have 3 yards of yarn left to finish. You're going to need 3 yards of yarn. So I would measure 3 yards, which just measure it out, and then I would put a knot, or I would maybe put a loop, and you can put a stitch marker there if you don't want to put a knot in your yarn at the point that's the 3 yards. Okay, so that way you know when you get to that, you need that much to put it together. Now, a knit 2, purl 2 rib, I realize that you're seeing the inside of this. You're seeing a purl on the inside, and you're wondering, well, how's that going to look? It doesn't matter, because this is a ribbing. It'll look the same on both sides. So you're going to knit 1, knit 2, yarn in front, purl 1, purl 2, yarn in back, knit 1 and 2, yarn in front, purl 1 and 2, and you're going to do this all the way across, and you're going to work in rib. So knit the knits and purl the purls, because you want the rib to be the same. We're not going to change them. So when I come back around, when I see knits, I will knit those. When I see purl bumps, I will purl those. And you want this is going to be for your turtleneck. And you're going to do this until you have 4.5 inches of ribbing. 4.5 inches of ribbing. Then you're going to loosely bind off, and I will come back when it's time to bind off. Okay, you guys, here is my ribbing. I've got mine done here, and flip this around so you can see. That is what it looks like. Now let's kind of fold it, and you can see how this, whenever it is finished, it's going to fold down. It's going to be really good. Okay, so now what do? We have to bind off. And again, we're going to bind off according to how it comes to us, which means it's going to be bind off in knit, and then bind off purl, and then bind off knit, and then bind off purl. But I wanted to show you what they mean when they say bind off loosely. And this is what I have left. I have a few wraps left before I get to that 3 yards, so I didn't want to go another time. Now we're going to kind of tighten that just a little, because I don't want that too loose on that end. And binding off loosely means just that. It's just a slip. Okay, now we have purls. So the yarn comes forward, wrap it around, and see how it's still kind of have a little bit of loose. I'm not going to tighten it up. Not going to do a lot of tightening whenever I'm binding off. I don't want a huge loop showing. Oh, I lost it. There. So I don't want like a huge loop like that showing. So I will just bring up the remainder there. But I'm not pulling it real tight. Now I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, continue to bind off, and then we're going to sew it up. I'm going to sew in my ends. Thought you guys might like to see how I do that. I use something that has a little bit of a pointier edge. I split these stitches up, go through them, and then I will catch one strand and I will go back through that little loop, and I will make a knot, and then I will go back through some more. Because going through parts of the stitches is the way to go, so that that extra strand doesn't show through the front of the work. Okay, now that everything is in, again, like I said, we're going to sew this together. We're going to sew right down the side of the collar down onto the shoulder. I'm going to turn it inside out. I'll get another piece of yarn. And I do the same thing. I kind of split them a little bit when I'm going in, but on this one I'm going to do it up the side, right where I'm going to stitch it. Kind of split those and right up the end, and sort of hide this little tail here. Bring it right up to there and snug it. And if you want to, you can mark certain places so that you know what's going to line up. So like I'm going to mark that one, and then I'm going to mark right here on the edge of this one. Okay. Then you can do the same down here. I'll do that and that right there. There's the edge there. So I can kind of pull it and say, oh, okay, that's how they should line up. Catch two legs over here. Sorry, I was out of camera. Two legs here. See, that one and that one. This one and this one. And go all the way down. Okay, you guys, I'll see you when we get this all done. Okay, you guys, this is the inside of mine. My seam. Now let's turn it inside out, right side out. Now you can remove your marking for the front, because as you see, it doesn't really matter which is the front and which is the back, because they're the same. It mattered when you were trying to figure out which stitches to take off of which stitch holder. And it also matters if you made one side shorter than the other. If you made the front shorter than the back, then it would matter what the front was. I guess I'd already marked it. I didn't see that one. Didn't realize I had marked that. Okay, you guys, so here it is. Here is your knit Dickey. You did it. Oh, another one done. Okay, you guys, so I would like to say something about this. I've had several remarks about the fact that this now means that someone feels like they're going to be able to make a sweater, which is true. It is true. You could very well do a sweater this way. You could very well easily work out how to do this and not do your turtleneck. Okay? You could just pick those stitches up and do a different neckline. on the sides here where we did 3 knits, if you were wanting to make this to where you want to stitch the 2 sides together, so you make it wide enough that it would fit on you, you measured around yourself and you give yourself a few extra stitches for putting it together. When you do the side, instead of knitting 3 stitches on either of the front or back, you slip the last stitch on either end, because a slip stitch is easier to put together whenever you're sewing them together. Now, if you were to sew this together, you could easily do that also, and you would have this ribbed down the center on either side, and you certainly could do that also. And then you would just have to figure out how much you want for your sleeve, and then you would pick up stitches all the way around here like we did on the neck, and you would do your sleeve. So yes, this is very much the easy beginning of what we might call a sweater without being a full sweater. Please post your makes on my Facebook group, Fiber Floozie Crafts on Facebook, so I can see when you finish your Dickey. I would love to see it. Or shoot me an email, fiberflooziecrafts@gmail.com. I hope that helps and gives you a lot of pointers. I hope you learned a lot doing this. I so appreciate you guys joining me on this journey. You guys, I hope you had fun today. I will see you for the next tutorial and see you later on my channel. Bye everybody.